You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me, it's Matt Gannon, and we got Joe Zamataro back in the house today.
I'm back.
Vacation Joe returns. So, guys, welcome into the show. Welcome, everybody that's here live with us today. We appreciate you guys tuning in as we get ready to talk some Lightning hockey. We got an action-packed episode for you guys today. Of course, we'll be talking about the unfortunate loss to the Florida Panthers, and it's okay. We'll help you get through the 5 stages of grief because I'm still going through them myself, but we'll get into that. We'll take a look at what's ahead for the Lightning, what the offseason is going to bring, and all that fun stuff and more. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on social media so you don't miss out on future episodes just like this one. And you can be notified when we go live so you don't miss out if you're watching this as a recorded episode and not here with us. So without further ado, though, first and foremost, guys, how you doing today?
You mentioned the 5 stages of grief. I'm still on the first stage here with deny, deny, deny. You know, you go on vacation for a little while. I was still watching the games, but, you know, have to accept coming back home after almost 3 weeks in Italy. I want to deny that I'm even back here, and then having to deal with the Bolts. No, the season's not over yet. We still have more games to go, right? I don't know. It's going to be a little bit to overcome it. How you doing, Matt?
We don't have any words, and we know you don't want to hear them.
No, this is not nearly that bad.
Come on, a little gallows humor. No, I mean, it sucks. I'd rather talk about Joe's vacation, but we have to talk about it. It does suck. I would rather be coming off an Italy trip, but unfortunately, we were here stuck watching the games. It didn't go our way. It was a better team that beat us. How did we get here, though?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask, Matt. I mean, you look at it, the Lightning, listen, when they started this season, you knew things were going to be tough. No Andrei Vasilevsky for the first month and a half. And then you had the injuries that they sustained throughout the season. You know, Hansen got hurt late. They battled a couple other things. The team was just not the same that they've been over the last couple of years. You look at a lot of the players that they've lost, whether it was due to cap circumstances or trades, whatever it may be, it's a very different team. And then heading into the postseason, the team was hot and then cold a little bit this year, and just unfortunately couldn't get it done against the Florida Panthers. The good news is they don't get swept. They do win Game 4, and they were able to force one more game, but they lose in Game 5. So let's start there, where let me ask you guys this. Do you think this season was a disappointment? Because you look at it and you say, a lot of people I know will sit there and say, hey, look, this team has recently still back-to-back Stanley Cups, went to 3 straight finals, which, by the way, is so hard to do. So many defending champs lose in round 1. In fact, Vegas just lost in round 1 to the Dallas Stars as well in 7 games. So it's really hard to do. And you know, they still have had a lot of success over the years. But for this season, what are your guys' thoughts?
Not that it's a disappointing season. It's a disappointing end, but I think we reached the bar. We weren't under the bar, and we didn't go over the bar. We kind of landed exactly where everybody thought we would be. You know, it wasn't a deep playoff run. We knew it was going to be an uphill battle in a strong Atlantic division. It's hard to say it's a disappointment. There were disappointing parts of the season, a lot of adversity thrown our way this season, but I can't say it's a disappointing season. It definitely does suck, though. But again, you're just kind of at the bar, ended exactly where everybody expected us to be. So you can't really call it a disappointing season.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of echo a lot of those sentiments. When you consider, you know, where the team started at the beginning of the season, and with a lot of adversity, you know, not having Vass to start the season, having a complete schema change with what we were doing on the back end, not be able to close out games, and then, you know, being able to really fight hard to actually get into the playoffs. I mean, that's satisfying in and of itself, that they actually did come together, make a really strong and exciting push in the last quarter of the season to make a playoff run. And then they came across a team that, you could probably say is going to be the best team coming out of the East. The Panthers are really good. They've been pushing for several years, kind of like the Lightning have done in the past on their run to win a cup. And they're a really good team. I wouldn't be surprised if they make it to the finals this year. If we had a different matchup, maybe we get to the second round, but in the end, you're going to have to beat the man. And unfortunately, I think we got them in the first round. It's disappointing to get eliminated a little bit early, but I mean, the guys did pretty well considering, what they were facing. I don't mean in the playoffs they did well. I mean for a season overall.
Okay, that's fair. I was going to say there, I don't know about that. But Matt, I actually disagree with you a little bit in the sense of this is where people kind of expected us to be. I think there were a lot of people, especially outside people, that said, listen, the Lightning are going to miss the playoffs. I remember those early season projections. People had us missing the playoffs and way down there in the standings. And so from that perspective, I think you look at it and say, well, the Lightning did great. They made the postseason. This is what the seventh or eighth consecutive year that they've made the playoffs now. So I think they did really good from that perspective. But for me personally, it's a disappointment. And it's because I'm a fan of the team. I'm a diehard fan. I'm one of those delusional fans that thinks we're going to win every single year. So we lost to the Florida Panthers, which always makes it harder when you lose to a bitter rival. And Joe, I do agree with you that, listen, the Florida Panthers are a great team. No question about it. They outplayed the Lightning in just about 95% of this series. There was a lot of things that they did better. They weren't better in game 5, but that's neither here nor there. But for me, it's a little bit of disappointment because when you saw the way the Lightning ended that season, you felt good going into it. And I just feel like they didn't show up for that first round. Again, the Panthers were the better team, but a lot of guys didn't meet expectations for me once the postseason started, except for maybe a guy like Steven Stamkos, who was absolutely phenomenal the entire way through as the captain of the team.
There were a lot of flaws that were exposed in these playoffs that we thought we did kind of cover up or even band-aided in that last quarter of the season. That last quarter was incredible. We were on really no long winning streaks or anything, but putting together some good wins against some good opponents. But, this entire season, we were picking out a lot of problems. We were complaining a lot about defense and certain times goaltending with Vazzy and even Johansson. And a lot of that did get exposed. Vazzy, he showed up in the playoffs, but the depth really wasn't there. The defense did their job. They didn't get really picked apart like they did early this season where teams were just kind of walking through them. But I don't know. It's just so tough to still swallow this. I know we've had, almost a week to get over it. What now, 6 days? But again, just a lot of these issues were exposed. And I do have a quick question. I know we're still going to try to stay on topic, but are you guys the kind of people that cheer for the team that beat you, so you got beat by the good team? You're cheering. Okay, so you're cheering for Boston, Jake. Like you want revenge, or not revenge, but
as much as it pains me to say, yes, I am cheering for Boston. Listen, I am, again, as I mentioned, I am a diehard fan of the Lightning, and I'm a very petty person. I do not want to see the Panthers move on. Now, listen, right after the Bruins eliminate the Panthers, I want the Bruins to lose right away. Okay, I'm cheering for either the Hurricanes or the Stars or somebody like that to win the whole thing. But yes, in the second round, I'm cheering for Boston. And if the Bruins had eliminated the Lightning, it would be the other way around. I do not subscribe to the saying of, oh, you want to lose to the best team in the NHL. You want that team to go win the Stanley Cup because then you lost to the best team. That doesn't make me feel any better. I don't get that at all. So no, I want the Panthers to lose round 2 and get swept.
No, I definitely take the opposite approach. I've in the past definitely enjoyed saying that, look, especially leading up before we won the 2 back-to-backs, the Lightning were eliminated by the Stanley Cup winners. Sometimes it was in the Stanley Cup. They were doing really well for the playoffs and the stretches that they had. So I did want Boston to win that last series. But I definitely still think that Boston, against Toronto, but I mean, Boston still is a team that I can't stand. Yeah. Well, I mean, apparently you can stand them more than you can stand the Panthers.
Well, I mean, listen,
No, man. I want to see the Panthers do it again to Boston. I want to see them embarrass Boston so that Toronto had gotten embarrassed. They pulled all the way to Game 7, and then there are tears. And I'd love to see some Marchand tears happen after the Panthers win. But then, who knows? What do we have? You're saying that the Hurricanes would be your pick. I was going to go Rangers over like the Canes. So, to see them lose in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Well, hang on. You're going to give me a hard time about cheering for the Bruins, and you're going to cheer for the Rangers? I mean, I don't know about that. Hey, I would love to hear what our viewers here are saying. Who do you guys think? Are you cheering for the Bruins? Are you cheering for the Panthers? Let us know in the comments down below. We'll talk about it. But how are you going to cheer for the Rangers?
You know what infuriate probably most of the hockey fandom more than anything is actually another Florida team winning a cup. Yeah. And
well,
I know it is special that it's always, it's been Tampa that gives Stanley a tan, but visiting South Florida, there could be worse fates like Edmonton winning, for instance.
Edmonton, we're going so off the rails.
Keep it out of Canada.
Yes.
Maybe we should get back to the Lightning per se. We're getting off the rails. See, guys, we are still very raw here after the Lightning elimination. This just is not going over well with us. But we have fun here. So, Eureka, by the way, our producers say it would have been better to say that I wanted a meteor to win. That's a good point. I wouldn't mind that. Listen.
You guys both took very extreme approaches on one side and the other side, and I'm taking the diplomatic approach here. I always go for the team that has more ex-Lightning players on it, so by default, I have to go Boston. There's Patty Maroon and Shat Deuces, Kevin Shattenkirk. I know he was only here for a short time, but that's the black and white of it. Always go for the team with more ex-Lightning players, especially ones that I like.
So if Zach Bogosian was in the playoffs, that's
Conn Smythe.
If you guys don't know, Matt is a huge Zach Bogosian fan. More reasons to tune into some of these episodes, and you should like and subscribe because it's always a fun time when we start talking about Matt Bogosian. But going back to the Lightning here, I do want to talk about a little bit about the series and exactly how things played out. Because, Joe, we didn't get to hear a lot of your perspective from these games. I know you were on vacation, but to me and Matt talked about this on the episodes when we were doing every other 2 games. And for us, it was a lot of listen, the Lightning did not start on time in a lot of these games. They constantly fell behind. I think game 4 was the only one that they scored first in and held a lead for a majority of the game, if I'm not mistaken. So, that was the one they started on time. Now they started on time in game 5, but the goals kept getting taken away from them. I'm not going to get into that because it's just going to make me angry. But Joe, what were your thoughts on the specific play for the Lightning in this series?
Are you meaning literally the start time of the game, or are you talking about the Lightning not showing up when you're talking about their start time?
Both.
I mean, because that was right. I mean,
it must have been nice for you being so far ahead. For me, no.
Dude, trying to watch a game at 1 a.m. starting at 1 a.m. That's tough. Which the game 5. I did start that one, at 1 a.m. The other, some of the other ones I'd watch about half of it and then fall asleep and, catch up the rest in the morning. But I watched that whole elimination game, at 1 a.m. And so I think we should back up just for a moment and look at the last 9 games of the regular season. Like the Lightning made a huge push in order to make sure that they secured themselves a spot. And once they got that X next to their name, it really kind of felt like in the regular season they started to fizzle. They went 4-5 in their last 9 games, and you start to see some of the play break down. Now, this has been a team that historically has coasted into the playoffs, but this, it just kind of felt like they were getting off of their winning ways a little bit too much when they were struggling to find them for a lot of the season. So I felt like they were going into the playoffs kind of cold in a sense. They weren't coming in with the hot hand. And sure enough, when the games were on the line, you saw a lot of the exact same issues that we've complained about all season long manifest themselves again. Guys getting lost on the weak side that end up being goal scorers. Not being able to score 5-on-5 and essentially being power play merchants. But then, they eliminated our ability to score on the power play, even though we, arguably could say that we had more than our fair share even of power play opportunities. And, the Lightning weren't able to capitalize on it. So if they're a one-trick pony and the Panthers found that out, it seemed like that's where they put a ton of their efforts in the PK, eliminate time and space from Kucherov because he's, by far the biggest catalyst for the entire team. And even though he had, I think he had what, 7 points. Yeah. That's a lot of points to have in those games, especially when you end up losing the series. Just wasn't enough. We didn't get depth scoring as much as we really needed, and that's all things that we kind of talked about in the regular season.
And that harkens back to what I was saying with, just pointing out those flaws. And yeah, it's a good thing you did bring it up. I hate to admit it, but yeah, I mean, we were kind of power play merchants this season. All the games that, or the one game that Kucherov missed early this season against Carolina, I bring it up a lot because I was there for that game, and it was one of the worst games I've ever seen live. There was no Kucherov, there was no nothing in the game. And when the Panthers isolate a guy like that and pressure the heck out of him, yeah, the team is going to vanish. Good thing Steven Stamkos really stepped up in this series, but yeah, I mean, they really did their research on the Lightning's flaws and their weaknesses and capitalized on pretty much every bit of them.
The amount of time and space that Kucherov had, or the lack thereof, you can tell that they put significant emphasis on that in their practices. And again, 7 points is amazing that he was able to do it, but you just couldn't do anything with the power play, and that was really good coaching from the Florida staff. And that was really hard to watch too. That we couldn't figure it out, and even trying to change things up a bit, it just didn't result in anything. Which it's hard to win when you get those opportunities and you can't gain momentum, and Florida just kept gaining momentum on the kills.
You do bring up a good point, Joe, and I do think you're right. I mean, they definitely coasted into the postseason. The only reason that didn't raise red flags to me is because the Lightning had done that like every year. They constantly were coasting into the playoffs. That's why
Did this one feel different though?
It did a little bit, but I think I convinced myself that, they do this every year. It's no big deal. There were definitely more red flags than, in previous years. But the power play, I think, is the biggest point here, right? I mean, listen, I hate the power play merchant term because goals are goals at the end of the day. But the Lightning had they had the best power play in the NHL. I think they still finished like 5th all time in regular season power play percentage. And then in the playoffs, it was basically non-existent. The one game they won, game 4, the power play scored. They were, I think, 2 for 5 in that game, which still isn't fantastic, but they were at least better. Every other night, there were games where they weren't scoring at all in the power play. And Matt, you said it too, or I think one of you guys said it, is that they did get their opportunities. They got more than their fair share, and they just weren't able to capitalize. And whether that was the Lightning falling apart at the end, and I think the Panthers did do a good job of shutting the Lightning down on the man advantage, because we saw Toronto do that in the regular season where they were super aggressive and jumping at our guys and not letting us get it set up, and it worked very well. And I remember saying it on the live stream here. And I think Florida did something similar to try and eliminate that Lightning power play.
Let's also give more credit where it's due. Bob played out of his freaking mind, and I think that was some of the best I've ever seen Bobrovsky ever play, and we've been familiar with him playing well against the Lightning, but he was the freaking behind the back luck save that he had just is one of those plays though that when Lady Luck's on your side, things start going your way, and it was just constantly that case for him, and he just kept coming up with save after save after save, some that he had absolutely no business making, that being one of them. And you can say, 6 inches to the left, and that goes in with an amazing goal by Dumba, and it didn't though. So, he made those saves.
I know neither of you guys will be offended, but you might think I'm crazy for saying this.
Uh-oh.
I don't think Bob was spectacular. He played well, but he still finished with a sub 900 save percentage. He was very well protected by his defense. I don't think we got a lot of quality opportunities. And yes, he did make a couple of great saves, but I don't think he played great overall. Again, just very, very well protected by his defense. But, he was, I don't think he was the better goalie in the series. Again, played well enough to beat the Lightning in 5 games, but goes back to, it kind of reminds me of what Wayne Gretzky said about Grant Fuhr. said Grant Fuhr never had great stats or anything, but he made the timely saves. He made the saves when he really needed to make those saves. Not, play a full dominant 60 minutes, but when the momentum is against you, you can really step up in that time. You might not be perfect throughout the entire series, and I'm not trying to take away anything from Bob. He made some fantastic saves, especially the Dumba save. That's got to be a top 10 save in NHL history. I hate to say it, but that's
playoffs,
just my
it's got to be up there.
That's just my opinion. Yeah,
that was a game-saving, like you said, they were timely. That was a game-saving save that he made on that one, and it seemed like he made quite a few, or the Lightning may have started to get momentum. He came up with those big saves at those critical times, and then you could definitely say that he let in a few that maybe he shouldn't have, or he wasn't the best goalie that you've ever seen, but the timeliness of some of those saves to keep them in it. I mean, the Lightning only had the lead in the entire series once, if I'm not mistaken. That was in their win.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. That's when they had it. And the only other time that they had a lead, it got taken away immediately in Game 5 because of the 2 disallowed goals. I keep bringing it up. I got to stop doing that because let's talk about it quickly to wrap up and put a bow on the actual series, and then we'll start to look ahead here on what's coming up for the Lightning. I know we got some questions about what we should do with some guys and stuff like that, so we'll get to that in just a minute. And thank everybody for tuning in here live with us as well. But so that last game, Game 5, I thought the Lightning actually played well in that game. I thought they came out and did what they were supposed to do, and they were going to be able to force a Game 6, which would have been huge to get that momentum back to Tampa. But those 2 disallowed goals, I know they were close, and I know I'm a Lightning fan. I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like those were some really iffy calls at best, and it really killed the Lightning. You want to talk about momentum changing. That took so much wind out of their sails to get not 1, but 2 goals taken away from you. That hurts.
I saw Montreal fans saying that it was BS. Those goals got taken away, both of them. And Montreal hates us. Rangers fans hates us. Toronto hates us. And I saw all these fans saying that they were kind of weak. You can make an argument for the second disallowed goal, but the one that was Duclair scored, or he nudged it free. I can't quite remember. Again, blocking all this out.
That was the first one. Was Duclair on the doorstep?
Don't understand that one a bit, and a lot of people share the same sentiment.
I'm rewatching it right now just to refamiliarize, and it's pretty clear that Duclair is in the crease before the shot takes place, and he makes contact with Bobrovsky in a way that Bob can't get to that loose puck. So I mean, we've seen it kind of go both ways. I feel like this season they've been decently consistent. Obviously we'd still like to have seen it go, the way of the Bolts, but I mean, Bob tries to grab a loose puck and Duclair prevents him while being in the crease. I mean, that one seemed easier than some of the other ones we've had to swallow.
Yeah, that is true. But for me, yes, he's in the crease, but to me, Bobrovsky wrapped himself around Duclair. What's Duclair supposed to do? He's in the crease, but you're allowed to be in the crease. And to me, that's Bobrovsky's fault. It wasn't Duclair's fault. That's where I got frustrated with that one. I think you are right that the second one was definitely worse than the first one in Duclair's. And again, I want to mention this because I don't want it to be understated. The taken away goals are not the reason the Lightning lost the series, or not why they lost that game. There were a lot of things they could have done better. It was definitely frustrating, and it definitely didn't help the Lightning. But to be abundantly clear, this was not the reason the Lightning lost. But that was my perspective on the Duclair one, especially I think it was Cirelli who made contact with and Bobrovsky just dropped his stick. I don't think he even really, barely even touched him.
That one was worse, really, in my opinion.
Worse as in more egregious to be taken back, or worse?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
Okay.
Where I don't, the Duclair one, I kind of understand the perspective more. With the Cirelli one, that didn't look to me like that was. It looked like Bob, pops out at the same time that Cirelli's right there. He runs into him, and it's such minor contact that I don't think that is enough to prevent him from making the save. And like you said, he kind of drops his stick, but it didn't. I don't know. There's a defenseman there too that's in the mix. I think that's just hockey play, and it's not something that should have been called back.
We're on the same page about.
But that's not going to. That again, like you said, that wouldn't have changed the game anyway.
I mean, no, it wouldn't have. It would have helped. I mean, they would. I think that one was that a game tying goal, or is it a go ahead?
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was.
No, that one
scored. No, it's a go ahead goal again. Right?
No, that was no. hold on, the ad's loading for me pulling it back up, but I think that
first
they were
goal I
down by
know was
2.
the first goal I know was a would have been a 1-0 lead, and I can't remember
Right.
if the second one was to either tie the game or if it was after the Panthers scored to go 2-0. But either way, and at the end of the day, yes, it is. Listen, the Lightning put themselves in a 3-1 hole before that even happened, and you can't do that against a very good team in Florida because not everything's going to go your way for the entire series. John Cooper, by the way, did not like those calls either. He actually apologized for his comments after that whole debacle, which so happens to guys when the heat of the moment they get angry and then they say stuff. And Cooper did later apologize for that, and a lot of fans were upset about that. But
Upset that he apologized.
No,
No,
upset
about his
comments
comments.
about the goals
Well,
being taken away.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So the second one would have been a tying goal, and that one was completely soft. It's for them to give up a tying goal in a clinching game, to reverse it like that. And I don't think his comments were completely out of. I mean, they weren't. They might have been a little bit out of character, but they weren't completely out of line. But he's
The
also
word
an,
that he apologized for, because he said, what did he say? He said, "Let's put skirts on, guys," and that's what he apologized before specifically. Which,
Okay.
yeah, but it's and again, it doesn't change the series at the end of the day. I don't think it was that bad of a comment, but Cooper being the guy Cooper is, he was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And he's extra precautious. And we know Cooper, the amazing things he does for so many people. He's such a nice guy. I'm not surprised that he apologized for a comment like that. But that was the specific reason for him apologizing.
I mean, he also has to work with the refs, and those are like coworkers essentially. So if you don't want to say stuff that'll embarrass them too much or tarnish your reputation, and walking back the comments, it's people get heated. So it was probably a smart move in the end.
Wait, did he say you should put the skirts on the refs or the goalies?
The goalies.
Oh,
The goalies.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but in the context of the way that the refs are calling the games.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I got you.
Right. Exactly. So at the end of the day, the Lightning do drop the series. The Panthers are the ones that are moving on to round 2. So I think it's time we kind of look ahead here now for the Lightning. We've talked about, was this a disappointing season? I think we all agree mostly there. No, it really wasn't a disappointment. This is a team that's had a lot of success. Of course, we wanted them to get further, but it is what it is. It's the reason they say it's the hardest trophy to win in sports because you're not supposed to be able to do it every single year. But looking ahead here, the Lightning have some big decisions to make. Now, the good news, finally, the cap is going up. We're going to get some help in that department. For so
3
long,
years too late.
Yeah, 3 years too late is right,
Yeah.
Matt. The flat cap has really, really hurt the Lightning, especially because of the timeliness of the Stanley Cups that they won. It happened right during that flat cap era. But the cap is taking a big jump, so it will help them in signing some of their free agents. They have a lot of different free agents, as you do every year. Some of the big ones to note, of course, are Steven Stamkos, obviously. You have Anthony Duclair and Matt Dumba, who the Lightning both traded for, who are going to need to be re-signed. There's a lot of other minor guys, rookies that are going to need to get re-signed as well. But let's start with Stamkos. I think he's the biggest one. He's the biggest name that everybody's going to be talking about. Now, if you watch the ESPN broadcast, which I did not, I watched Bally because I wanted to watch our team broadcasters, but ESPN would not shut up about how this could be Steven Stamkos' last game as a Bull, and it drove me nuts. I don't think that's going to be the case. I fully expect Steven Stamkos to be back as a member of the Lightning. If you guys didn't see his comments during the exit interviews, there wasn't too much new. Of course, JBB said that's their number one priority. They want him to be a Bolt for life. And Stamkos kind of reiterated some of that stuff too, saying, listen, I got to see what's best for my family, and things have changed in the sense that I have kids now. But he also said at the end of the day that, listen, he's always wanted to be, he loves it here in Tampa and he wants to stay. So with those kind of comments, I expect him to be back. I don't know what the contract is going to be. He also talked about taking a discount. But what are your guys' thoughts on Stammer hopefully coming back to Tampa Bay?
I'd say that my perspective hasn't changed too much since it did during the regular season. He did prove that once again he can score goals. Unfortunately, most of them have been on the power play, and his plus minus still was not up to par, we'd say. But it was kind of stable after, I'd say the second half of the season, right? So he was like a negative 24 at one point. I don't know what he actually finished with. I don't feel like pulling it up to be honest, but it wasn't too far from that. So it's not like he got worse as the season went on. He got significantly better. However, how much better are we talking in terms of what his actual value is for the team to be spending? I still think that the most ideal scenario would be for the Lightning to acquire him for, say, 3 years at 5.5 a year. That's a best case scenario, I think, because I don't think you'd be able to do it for less than 5.5. And maybe you can convince Hedman to do some sort of an extension too, to make sure that it still feels like home for Steven. But if it goes to like 6.5, I don't think he's going to end up being worth it. And that's what gets me worried. I mean, it's got to be team before player, right? And if he gets too high, how do you re-sign him even with the cap going up with the other holes that you really have to fill?
And I'm glad you took that approach, Joe, because me and a lot of other people, recency bias is a huge thing, and he was, arguably the best player, unarguably the best player in on either team in that first round series. I'll not relent on that, but honestly, one of our best players in the second half of the regular season. Let's say, the fourth quarter of the regular season. I thought he really stepped his game up a lot, but there were still a lot of consistency issues, effort issues. He still can't make a pass on his backhand. That'll never happen. But it's not as easy as, just sign him to a blank check. He played great in all 5 games. Just give the man what he wants, which is, what I was saying in the Discord chat and all that. But it is not that simple because, again, he's not getting any younger. He's 34 right now. Again, with the consistency issues and health issues, which has mostly subsided by now, it's still a wicked gamble. So I'm not sure where to go, what to do, what to offer. I think 5.5 for 3 years. I think that's still a little low. Like, if he really wants to chase some money, a team will offer him much more than that. Like Nashville is kind of a big one being thrown around. They're going to have a lot of cap space coming up this year. I wouldn't mind Nashville. I mean, it would suck because he's not in Tampa, but
he could definitely hit the free market and get a lot more money. But that's not what he expressed he wanted to do. And you have to leverage from a business standpoint. You have to leverage that.
So go, Jake?
Well, I was just going to say, Stamkos also talked about how a lot of guys on this team have taken a team discount and they could have gotten more on the open market. So he understands that. I think he's going to get way less than what he's currently, $8.5 million right now. So there is that factor. I was laughing because I can tell like Joe's definitely got the JBB cap on and thinking what's best for the team. How do we make this work? Meanwhile, me over here, I've got the diehard fan on. I will be beside myself if we lose Steven Stamkos, and I will never forgive JBB for it. Even though, listen, you're right, Joe, in saying that when it gets over that, especially that 7 mil, maybe even that 6 million mark, it becomes a lot more difficult to make work. But for me, he's the captain of this team. He's been one of, I would say, almost the best captain in Lightning history. I mean, Dave Andreychuk did so much for the team getting that first.
It's
first
Stammer.
Oh.
Objectively, it's Stammer. I'm sorry.
That's what I mean. And Stammer is such a big identity of this team. I think he was fantastic in the second half of the regular season. He knew that he had a bad start to this regular season and did turn it up. And I think he showed that he can still play at a very high level. I think it would be a disservice to this franchise to lose a guy like that. And again, I understand you have to sign him to a team-friendly deal to make them compete, because he mentioned that he wants to compete still, which I totally understand. But I think you've got to find a way to get him back, because it would be I don't even want to talk about it.
I think you're making a choice. You're making a choice though between deep playoff runs and loyalty to Steven Stamkos. Like, what would you rather have? 82 games with Steven Stamkos that you get to watch, or say 20 games in the postseason?
See, I don't think those are mutually exclusive to me. Is it harder to build a team that can have a deeper playoff run with Steven Stamkos sitting at a higher value? Yeah, but I don't.
You don't have any depth scoring at all right now, so you've got 6 guys that potentially have roles that you need to fill.
Well, I mean, no depth scoring right yet, but I think there's guys that can step up. There's a lot of exciting young talent in the minor league system right now. I don't know how long that's going to take to get up here. I think some guys are close, though. And I think that JBB does what he does best and can find guys that can. That's what the Lightning have been doing for the last couple of years, is finding those guys who come out of nowhere and create the depth scoring. One year it was Ross Colton. Last year, or the 2 years before that, was defense that actually came through for him. This year, the young guys unfortunately weren't just quite there. They tried to get at some of that late and it just didn't quite work out, like Duclair. I think they can do that though, even with Steven Stamkos. Is it harder? Yeah, probably.
I'd argue we've had now 2 consecutive seasons without depth scoring, where our bottom, let's say 5 guys, our bottom 5 guys aren't really able to do too much, and that's 2 seasons in a row now. Love JBB, love the moves he made to get us cups. I mean, but you do have to also be critical of some of the things that he's done. Connor Sherry obviously didn't work out. You take a gamble. Jeannot hasn't put up numbers that I really would like to have seen him. He was injured for half a season, sure, but it's got to be something that you at least think about in terms of where the team's going.
Well, you just mentioned too there. Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
So is the depth scoring that bad, or are we just spoiled with one of the best, if not the best, third line in NHL history? Like, I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. Like, I know it has, the well has dried up a bit in bottom 6 scoring, but I also think it's really hard to compare with, how recent we had the Goudreau, Coleman, Gord line, which is just unbeatable, and a killer fourth line as well, which did kind of revolve a bit, but
that's what you need to win cups. The first 2 lines neutralize each other, and you need to be able to score 5-on-5 with your depth lines, and then hopefully your special teams come out on top, against the opposing team.
Well, and Joe, you mentioned 2 guys that they got to hopefully be that depth scoring, right? In Jeannot and Sherry, and obviously those. Jeannot, I think, still has the potential, and he's still improved, but he was hurt this year, and obviously hasn't scored nearly as much. Again, a lot of that's because of his price tag, and that's not fair to him, but that's just the reality. And Sherry obviously did not work out in year 1. But I think that's the exact point, right? They had the depth pieces that they thought were going to help them. They just didn't work out. Now, maybe if you juggle things around, change some of those players, and you get that depth scoring back. So I think it's definitely doable. To answer your question, though, specifically, I'd rather watch 82 games of Steven Stamkos. That's just me.
Wow.
And
dude,
again,
that's fair.
Yeah, well, I want to see Steven Stamkos, and it just because he's a huge part of this franchise, and I still think that they can absolutely make a run with him. But I understand your point.
Look, man, in 2012, when there's was it 2012, maybe even before, maybe it's like 2008, actually, when the OK Cowboys were running the show, some of the most painful Lightning hockey you could ever imagine in terms of wins, but we still had Vinny and Marty, and they were competing for points races, and that it was at least something to look forward to. And if this isn't going to be a team that can win a cup for sure, then it's not a wrong answer to have someone that you love to watch perform night in and night out be on the team instead.
Joe sounded like a therapist out here trying to make me feel better about the Lightning. You're right, though. You're right. Go ahead, Matt.
History repeats itself, so I'm wondering if we see another captain for captain trade with the Rangers, eh?
Oh, jeez.
I'm just kidding. I don't want Jacob.
When you guys were talking about the best Lightning captains of all time, I almost
put Matt in a timeout real quick.
That's fair.
When you're saying the best Lightning captains of all time, I almost bitterly, kind of mentioned Marty. Didn't even make it a full 82 games as a Lightning captain before demanding a big trade like that.
That was a weird situation. Hopefully we don't have to deal with another one like that. I do want to get to a comment real quick that we had from Instagram. They asked if you guys think if we're trying to go and package Hedman. I don't think we should, as I still believe he's a premier defenseman. And the big reason I think we talk about this too is Hedman is going into the final year of his contract. And normally, the Lightning like to sign those guys very early. They didn't do it with Steven Stamkos, and I think we're kind of seeing why they usually try to avoid this because it doesn't, blow up into anything crazy media-wise. But no, I agree what you're saying. I don't think they're going to package Hedman. I think, and JBB talked about this in his exit interviews. Of course, they want to try and bring back Hedman. Hedman, I believe, still wants to stay here. I would be, again, surprised if they don't try to bring him back. And listen, the last defensive trade that they tried to make with McDonough did not work out for them in the long run. So I think they bring back Hedman. I don't know if it happens this year the way JBB has been. Again, it depends on like how much is Stamkos coming back for? What are they doing with some of these other guys? So there's a lot of question marks to be answered. But I would be surprised if they traded him.
He's certainly not
like a full trade clause as well. Sorry, Matt.
He's certainly not getting traded, but I wouldn't be entirely shocked if they let him walk. And maybe not even let him walk.
No, you can't let him walk for nothing.
You really
you trade him.
You really shouldn't, but I am Victor Hedman's biggest fan on earth. He is arguably my favorite Bolt of all time, but he has been abysmal defensively this season and last season. And there was a time where he was objectively the best defenseman in the NHL, but his fall off has been, spectacular. And I really hate saying this, but he has just not been able to keep up with really the defensive side of the puck. And, he still has, great moments, but there is a lot of the times where he's getting beat. His plus minus is a little fancy because he can still put up a lot of points, even strength and on the power play, which doesn't help your plus minus, and plus minus is a dumb stat anyway. But he's not passing the eye test defensively. I mean, and we can go back to, I can't remember which goal it was, but was it in, it was in game 5 where he was just flat-footed, standing still, watching the puck. I love him to death, but if he does come back, he's not going to be the number one. We really, really, really are banking on Sergachev taking that next step. He's not really a young guy anymore. He's really approaching veteran territory, Sergachev, that is. But I don't know if he has the, skill level to be a number one, power play quarterback and your number one defensive defenseman all in one like Victor Hedman was for a couple of years. It's a really good question, but to simply answer the question, no, he's not getting traded, but the future is a bit questionable for Victor Hedman, especially if you get rid of Victor.
If you get rid of Victor Hedman, you might as well blow the whole thing up. Honestly, you might as well blow it completely up, and I'd be fine with that. You keep maybe 2 pieces, 3 pieces, and that ends up being just offensive players and Vassy. I guess 4 pieces with Cooch, Hagel, Pointer, and Vassy. Everyone else can come and go, but Hedman you absolutely keep otherwise. You keep him. He had his second best season points-wise in his career last season. He still is doing it offensively, and I know that he's been caught in a lot of ways for the last 2 seasons where he just hasn't had the explosiveness in his skating to be able to make those pushes laterally to surprise guys quite as much. He's been a little bit slower with his feet, but that's okay when you've got younger guys that are able to step in and cover that up. So allow him to be a little bit more offensive minded, and whoever he's paired with, just know that they have to get back a little bit faster, make that sort of adjustment rather than even think about losing Victor Hedman, plus the influence that he has on the other defensemen, what he can teach and show. I think he's too big of an asset to possibly let walk. I'd love to see him also be a Bolt for life. And, if Stamkos is gone, then, and Hedman are gone, then it's a huge rebuild. It's going to be years before they're good again because we'll only really have Sergachev that's, a top player. I mean, might as well get rid of Chernak too, because I'm definitely ready for that to happen. And now you're talking about a completely new decor, and that's that when you're doing it that way, why not just have assigned Stamkos in order to watch the team kind of flounder around until they get stability again with new pradich
Darren Raddysh is really about to be our number 1 D-man in a couple of years.
He's
old.
Yeah, Raddysh is old. Actually,
He's like 28.
I'm with you, Joe, in the fact that listen, if Hedman's going to go and Stamkos, like at that point, just let the guys go, and you definitely don't let them walk. If you're going to do that, you trade them. I think they still got great value, but I don't think that's going to happen. I expect these guys to come back. Maybe it's my blue-colored glasses, but I would be surprised if they don't bring them back. Hedman's still got another whole year or 2 to work that out, but I wouldn't be surprised the Lightning do get some big contracts signed because that usually is their normal MO to sign guys very early. There's a lot of value that's going to have to be taken into consideration. I'll tell you one thing, guys, for sure that I do know for sure. one place you can find some great value, heading over to shop.rblrsports.com and checking out the awesome team-inspired merch that we have there. We thank everybody who's tuned in and hanging out with us for this episode. If you're still here, I highly recommend you go check out the shop. Links, as always, are going to be in the description. You can go check this out, and you can use code BOLTS to get 10% off your order as well. Matt's rocking the RBLR hat as well over there with the lightning-themed colors for this show as well. I know, Matt, you were talking to us beforehand. It's got some great durability, right?
Oh yeah, dude. I completely fumbled making the transition for the ad read, so we have to do it here late in the show. But yeah, dude, I bought one of the lightning hats, the Gasparilla hats. When that merch dropped, early March, late February, and the hat's already sun faded. I work outside, 5 days a week. This hat, it's held up through everything I could throw at it: grease, grime, sun, salt, everything I can throw at it, and it's holding up better than the lightning gear and maybe the lightning players. So yeah, I highly recommend these hats. I know I'm a great model for it as well.
That flow going, man.
Don't get used to it.
Links are down in the description, so you can check them out. I think, guys, we're going to get ready to wind it down here. Thank you so much to everybody who has tuned into this live episode as well. Highly recommend you like and subscribe. Follow us on social media at RBLR Sports or at RBLR Lightning, because we're going to have a ton of off-season content coming your way, whether it's player grades, talking about the signings that happened during the off-season, or anything else that goes down. We're going to have it here. We're going to have some really fun episodes coming out too. And we'll kind of go crazy, talk about some of our favorite plays of all time. Last year we did our favorite jerseys rankings. So we'll have a lot of fun off-season content to come your way. So make sure you like and subscribe. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you in the next one. Go Bolts!
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.